This is Surfing Through Cinema. I'm your host, Hawaii Harry. Today I'll be discussing the next film for Classic Hollywood Week. This is a film from Charlie Chaplin and his first film to be completely done with sound, and this is one of the last ones he made in the US. He plays two roles in this movie, one Hinkle, the dictator of Tumania, and the other as a Jewish barber. And of course, any resemblance between the two is purely coincidental. This episode is all about The Great Dictator. Okay, so some technical details about The Great Dictator. This was Charlie Chaplin's most commercially successful films. And unlike most movie studios at this time, he completely funded it himself. So his money was on the line. It wasn't like he had investors or anything. And and people adored and loved this movie. Coincidentally, the film was being created around the same time Hitler invaded Poland. And the big premise in this movie is Hinkle's trying to invade Ostrich. So it's kind of interesting to see how the satire kind of mimicked reality, and a little scary too. But yeah, that's they couldn't have planned it any time better. Okay. Now the third technical point, the haircut scene to the tune of Hungarian Dance Number 5. This was carefully planned out and filmed in in one take, and so with lots of painstaking work and careful maneuvering, they were able to accomplish it, and it really shows. It's one of the most memorable and funniest scenes in the movie. All right, so now let's get into the plot. So Adenoid Hinkle, he's a dictator of Tumania, and he has risen to power after World War I. And Charlie Chaplin plays this character, and it's kind of a spoof of Adolf Hitler. And what's really, really funny about it is, and interesting, is Chaplin, he studied Hitler's speeches so he could mock his mannerisms and his way of speaking. And a lot of the speeches he makes in the movie, they sound German, but it's really gibberish and very, very exaggerated. He kind of stumbles around. There's a scene where he's bouncing a globe around. We realize it's a balloon. And he starts hugging it, then it explodes. And he kind of looks sad. It's pretty hilarious. The reports say Hitler wasn't a huge fan of that. A Jewish barber, played also by Charlie Chaplin, he is suffering from memory loss and thinks it's still right around World War I. And so when he's walking around, he notices his barber shop is all boarded up and got painted on. So he opens it, sweeps it, and then opens it up again. And all these crazy adventures happen to him and the other local Jewish store owners. And they're constantly bickering and fighting with Hinkle's men, who keep coming around, shutting him down and forcing him to to follow Hinkle. Very, very similar to how the Nazis actually did it during World War II. And and speaking of the barber, he has an uncanny resemblance to the dictator because it's Chaplin. Not a huge difference between the two, other than different hats and clothes, really. He tries to escape from Tumania to get into Ostrich, and when they get there, they have to put on disguises so that they blend in with the soldiers that are invading it, and people think he's the real Hinkle, so they drag him onto the stage to have him present over a radio to millions of individuals what was going on, and everyone thinks it's Hinkle. He's going to give some powerful speech, and Chaplin's the barber, he decides this is a good time to spread a good message and a message of hope. That's exactly what he does. He gives the most famous scene in the movie is this speech, and it's very, very moving, very, very powerful, and primarily about democracy, but also asking the soldiers to step down from attacking the innocent people, and how we think too much and feel too little. It's a beautiful speech and definitely the highlight of the whole movie. And that's where it ends, on a great note, and definitely kind of and definitely a perfect ending for one of Chaplin's most famous movies. All right, so that's the plot to The Great Dictator. I'm going to go on a break real quick, but first, here's a message from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here's how. It's totally free. There are tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your computer and even your cell phone. But that's not all. Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. You could even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor is everything you need to make a complete podcast all in one small place. So go on and download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Okay, so we're back from our break. Now I'm going to get into some critical views and my personal views on The Great Dictator. So, it was nominated for Best Picture at the 1941 Academy Awards. And it received 4 other nominations but didn't win any of them. Nonetheless, critics raved and loved this movie. Like I said, it was Chaplin's highest grossing film. And even in the European countries, a couple like France, they used it as propaganda against fighting against the Nazis. Now in Germany, however, it was banned for many, many years up until the 50s because of the negative depiction of him. So interestingly enough, though, there are reports that Hitler did actually watch this movie 2 times, and then there are other reports saying he didn't. So in reality, we really don't know if he actually watched it or not. But nonetheless, it was banned in Germany for many, many years. And but now it's one of the most well-regarded, well-respected movies of Chaplin's career. Okay. Now it also has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, stating the storyline is amazing. The speech itself really is the whole reason most people go to watch it. It's wonderfully moving and really, really amazing speech. And then even on IMDb, it's number 55 of their top 250 movies list. So across the board, very, very popular movie and very touching movie. All right, so now we'll get into my personal views. I absolutely love the acting of Chaplin as both of the characters. I think the way he was able to do dual roles like that was phenomenal. You know, the Jewish barber, he's kind of more quiet and reserved up until he gives the speech. But before then, he's kind of a bumbling idiot, like the standard tramp character that he created. I think this was his last time that he ever played him. And then Hinkle is the total opposite. He's very loud, very outgoing, all over the place, kind of makes a fool of himself. So they're both comedic characters, but definitely very, very different. And I loved how Chaplin was able to show us those 2 different sides of it. My second point, I absolutely love the speech. I think everyone should listen to it and apply it, because I think honestly, it is one of the greatest speeches ever, regardless of it being in a movie. This is a great speech in general. I love every moment of it. Then my third point, although I love this movie, this is still only my second favorite Charlie Chaplin movie. And the first one, of course, is City Lights. I love the love story. I think it's a lot better than in this one. There wasn't a whole lot of chemistry between the Jewish barber and the girl Hannah. I think there could have been more there, but some reports say that this is right around when Chaplin and Paulette Goddard, I believe is her name, they were fighting a lot and not getting along. So you could definitely tell that there was a lot of tension between the two. And I think the on-screen relationship suffered because of that. All right, well, those are my thoughts and feelings on The Great Dictator. Next time, I'll be discussing the next film, or in this case, TV show for Star Wars Week. This is a show that premiered on Disney XD and takes place before and during the sequel trilogy. I'm, of course, talking about Star Wars Resistance. Well, until next time, this has been Surfing Through Cinema with Hawaii Harry. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Surfing Through Cinema. Make sure to check us out on Facebook at Surfing Through Cinema with Hawaii Harry and on Instagram with Surfing Through Cinema. We also have a website, www.anchor.fm/Surfing Through Cinema, where you can learn more details on upcoming episodes and on past episodes.